This is a disclaimer. This episode may contain graphic descriptions of crime and criminal activity. It may not be suitable for listeners under the age of 18 or for those who may find the descriptions disturbing. Listeners' discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to another episode of Krime KE podcast. My name is Ajuma and I am very grateful that you took the time to listen in today. Now, in this episode, we will get into the death of Eileen Cherotich. She was a second-year human resources student at the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology, or ARIST, in Nakuru, and she died mysteriously after a night out with friends last year. And there's still a lot of mystery surrounding this case, as you'll see as I narrate. So without further ado, let us get into today's episode, and please stick around until the end of this episode to find out how you can support this podcast. Now, to begin Eileen Cherotich's story, let me take you to the Saturday of July 13th, 2024. At around 1 p.m., Eileen leaves her house in Kabasis to go to Nakuru town to plait her hair. She tells her friend that she will be back that evening as soon as her hair is fixed. She had no idea that this was the last time that she would see her friend alive. Now, for purposes of storytelling in this episode, we will call her friend Jen. Jen is not her real name. So Eileen tells Jen that she will be back and she leaves for Nakuru town to plait her hair. The hours passed by and it gets to 6 p.m., 7 p.m. It's getting dark. There is no sign of Eileen. Now, according to Jen, when that happened, she just assumed that Eileen had probably stopped at another friend's house on her way from Nakuru. A few minutes past 8 p.m., Jen gets a knock on her door. When she opens, she finds that it is their mutual friends Brenda and Joseph. They tell her that they are headed to Nakuru town for a party and they plan to pick up Eric, who was Eileen's boyfriend, on the way to the party at Ngata Bridge. Now, Eric worked at a butchery in Nakuru and he had been in a relationship with Eileen for around 1 year and 5 months, and their relationship was not the rosiest. They had a lot of arguments and conflicts. Now, at this point, Brenda and Joseph also say that they would meet Eileen in Nakuru and she would join them for the party too. As all of this was happening, Eileen and Eric were not on good terms. So I don't know if Eric knew, but Eileen was not aware that she was going to meet him at the party. Brenda was the one who had orchestrated the meeting because she wanted them to reconcile. When Joseph and Brenda leave her house, Jen goes to sleep knowing that Eileen will be with them the whole night and trusts that she will be safe. That was until around 2:45 a.m. when she received a call from Joseph. Now, according to Jen, she received a call from Joseph and he didn't say much. He told her to open the gates and prepare to leave with him immediately because something bad had happened and they needed to go to Nakuru immediately. So she just does as she's told. She leaves the house fast and she meets with Joseph at the gate. She gets in his vehicle and he starts driving towards Nakuru town. At this point, Jen is confused and she does not understand the reason for this rush and where Eileen, Brenda, and Eric are because as far as she was concerned, they were all together. As they were heading to Nakuru, Joseph told Jen that Eileen had been hurt after jumping out of the car. He told her that as they were returning home, Eileen and Eric got into an argument in the car and she ended up throwing herself out of the moving vehicle. Now, Joseph at this time told Jen that he was taking her to where Eileen was, and he also instructed her to report the incident to the police. But the thing is, he was actually instructing her to lie to the police. He told her to tell the police that when she was coming from town, she just bumped into a woman who had been hit by a car on the side of the road. Now, Jen told the media that at this time, she could clearly see that Joseph was afraid, and he even told her that he was scared that they would end up in jail for what had happened to Eileen. So he took her to the scene of the incident along the Nakuru-Eldoret highway near the Everready roundabout. And when they got there, Jen says that Joseph instructed her to get out of the car so that he could go and hide it. So if you are in Jen's shoes, you can see she was confused. as to everything that is happening, and she's not understanding what is going on. She said that she saw Brenda holding Eileen in her arms, and she noticed that Eileen had stab wounds on her head and on the sides of her stomach. Some of her braids had been pulled out of her head, and Jen said that at this point, she could not believe what was happening. She could see that Brenda was clearly drunk and confused, and there was blood everywhere. She said that she just started screaming, and that was when one Boda Boda rider told her to go and report the incident. He offered to take her to the nearby Kaptembo police station to make an official police report. Now, when she got to the station, Jen told the police everything she knew about what had happened, which I am assuming is not that much because she had also just been called up to the scene. She told the police everything that Joseph had told her, including the fact that he had asked her to lie to the police so that they would not go to jail. Police took her statement and they took her back to where Eileen's body was to verify her claims. Jen said that when they got back to the scene, Brenda was gone too. She tried to call her and Joseph, but his phone was off and she could not understand what Brenda was saying because she was too drunk to communicate effectively. Police transferred Eileen's body to the Nakuru City mortuary as they began investigations into her death. At this point, Joseph, who was driving the vehicle, Brenda, Joseph's girlfriend, and Eric, who was Eileen's boyfriend, became the primary suspect in this case because they were the last known people to see her alive. Now, Sunday morning rolls out and the news of Eileen's death spreads across her campus and even the entire country because there are several news reports about it on TV. When students from Arvist heard the news of her death, they took to the streets to protest. They blocked the highway and some of them even went ahead and spoiled Joseph's place of business in Kabasis. So, when he saw the hostility from the students, Joseph decided to turn himself into the police that Sunday morning. He walked into Kaptembo police station and told them his version of what happened that night. Now, according to the findings of the investigation, Eileen met the three at a club called Platinum 7D in Nakuru that night. They had a good time drinking and I guess catching up. And after that, the four of them left the club with Joseph driving the car. Somehow, Eileen ended up on the side of the road with stab wounds. Government pathologist Dr. Titus Ngulungu conducted the autopsy on Eileen Cherotich's body, and he established that she died of a severe head injury. The postmortem report showed that she died due to a spinal cord injury and a frontal skull fracture, which means that she hit her forehead, which is the frontal, the front of the skull. She also had other injuries like bruises on her lungs, which the pathologist said were consistent with rolling on the ground multiple times. And according to the pathologist, the findings of the autopsy were actually consistent with Eileen falling from a moving car. He said that when she fell or was thrown out of the car, her head absorbed most of the force on impact, leading to her death. Now, police arrested Brenda and Joseph, and the car was also taken into police custody as the investigations continued. Eric was on the run after the case made headlines, and up until this day, I still cannot verify whether he has ever been traced or even arrested. Brenda and Joseph were released after their case was examined by the Director of Public Prosecutions, and they were made state witnesses. All this happened as Eric was on the run. The DPP say that there was no evidence linking the two of them to the crime. Eileen Cherotich was buried on Wednesday, July 24th at their home in Gainet village in Bomet County. In her tribute to her daughter, Eileen's mother described her as her pride and joy and the one child that she could always rely on. She said that in their last conversation, Eileen's last words to her were, "Mom, wacha nikazane, nataka nikujengee nyumba," which loosely translates to, "Let me work hard so that I can build you a house." Her friends say that she was friendly with everyone and she will surely be missed. May her soul rest in peace. We have come to the end of this episode. That is all I have for you on the story of the death of Eileen Cherotich. There's still not much out about this case so far, but I will provide an update as soon as it is available. And normally I will do that through the podcast social media platforms. So if you're not following us on Instagram and TikTok, then you might be missing out on some of the updates. You can support Krime KE podcast by sharing this episode with your friends so that we can get a larger community to listen to these cases. I have tagged the podcast contact information and social media pages on the show notes of this episode so that it is easier for you to reach out if you have any feedback on this episode or the podcast in general. We also have a WhatsApp number. You can send in your voice notes, suggest cases, and give feedback. I have noticed that not many of you use our WhatsApp number. So I have put it in the show notes so that it's easier for you to get it. And now with all that said and done, do not forget to give the podcast a 5-star rating on Spotify and catch the next episode of Krime KE podcast on Thursday next week. But until then, stay safe and remember, it is crime with a K.